I said, "Dear God, if you're listening, my intention is to manifest my soulmate and be married by May of this year. Why was I spending years manifesting narcissists and just the same
Yeah.
archetype but different man?"
God is like, this is the state of readiness you need to be in. Now you have all of these different options of choices and paths that can lead to this readiness for you to be in the position to be able to like recognize it, receive it.
Welcome to the Marriage Magnet podcast, where it's not just about attracting the one, it's about becoming the one. I'm your host, Nechama Phillips, and here we focus on growth, high standards, and creating an intentional life and love through self-development. Navigate your dating journey with clarity and confidence, because marriage is not just a box you check off, it's your life.
Welcome back to the Marriage Magnet podcast. I'm your host, Nechama Phillips, and today I have the incredible Ayelet Polonsky here with me. Welcome, Ayelet, and I'm so excited to hear just rapid fire share a little bit of like who you are, what you do, and all things manifestation and healing.
Yeah, I mean, okay, rapid fire. Here we go. Like you said, Ayelet Polonsky, thanks so much for having me. It's an honor to be in conversation with you. And
Thank you.
yeah, manifestation is just something that I feel very honored to have stumbled upon really when I was 22. So that was a very long time ago. When I was living in India, I lived in India for 6 years.
So cool.
And I thought I was going to a 21-day yoga meditation retreat. And during those 21 days, the topic of manifestation came up. The teacher slash guru that I had then was very well versed in like the ancient teachings on manifestation, but from a more Eastern lens. And I was just really inspired by and really moved in when it came to, okay, this is how we can co-create our reality and have a very deep relationship with the creator. So 21 days turned into 6 years of living at the ashram.
A little bit of an extension.
Just a tad. My life likes to do these reroutes very abruptly. And thank God, I've always just kind of like heeded the call and responded and taken aligned action, which is also a part of manifestation.
Yeah.
And then just real quick from India, I was in a meditation after 6 years of living there, sitting in Bombay, and a voice came into my meditation and it said, "Leave this country now and go to Israel and never look back." So within 30 minutes, I had a flight booked. After
Wow.
6 years.
I have so many questions.
I hope I have so many answers. But yeah, I mean, it was 6 years of really learning how to listen to that still small voice, to listen to that soul calling, and to take what I call now a soul plunge, kind of like a cold plunge.
I like
right?
that. Yeah.
It might be uncomfortable, but ultimately it's for your good. And so I took the soul plunge and left 6 years of community, 6 years of really strong connection with my teacher, and got on a plane with nowhere to sleep in Israel, no itinerary, no plan, just on a whim. And I was so divinely guided and supported. I mean, the amount of hashgacha pratis, of divine synchronicities that guided me once I got to Israel. And I mean, there's a whole back end story of why I left India and why that voice came to me and where it was coming from. It was really my soul speaking from the inside out, ready for the next rung on my manifestation ladder.
I was going to ask if you were religious at the time. Was this coming from a religious place, or was this coming from more of that, not that it has to be opposing, but like the meditative place where you were doing that inner work? It wasn't necessarily a religious thing.
So I wouldn't say I was religious from a Jewish context, right? But I would say I was deeply religious from a spiritual, God-centered context. So India was a very rigorous practice. So kind of like how we have halacha in Torah Judaism. They don't use the word halacha, but there's other like strict structures in place that allow us to have a deeper relationship, A, to ourselves, and B, ultimately with source. So it was deeply religious, I would say, but in a very different way.
Beautiful. Yeah. For me, manifestation, law of attraction, and all of that. And I know we've had conversations before. For me personally, there was a time in my life, especially on my dating journey, where I realized the power of it. It just clicked for me. Like I heard something, I don't know. I don't even know exactly what it was. It was just something in me that was like, wow, this is actually going to change my life if I start to think and feel this way and like adopt this as a way of being. And it helped me so much just like release attachment from, I remember a guy who dumped me and I was like devastated for 1 minute until I was able to like recoup myself. For the first time, I was able to use the power of like law of attraction and of like regulating myself through this. And I just feel like ever since then I took it and ran with it. And it's just a huge part of my life and my work today, because even without doing it on purpose, my whole like work is become and attract the love you deserve, which is like literally that's what it is. So, right. And of course it's through the self-development lens and the inner work and all of that, but it has such a manifestation, vibe to it. And that's clearly what I believe in, right? Which is like you need to become the vessel to be able to hold, not just to attract it, but then also to hold it and to receive it and to let it in when it does show up. And so I know that you have a really fascinating story of manifesting your husband in, is it 21 days?
21 days.
21 days. So I would love for you to share just a little gist of it, for our audience here who are on their dating journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
And could use the inspiration.
Yeah. So I just want to start by saying manifesting your soulmate relatively quickly, I really believe it's possible for everyone, but not everyone is going to be in a place, what am I trying to say? I don't want people hearing this and being like, well, it happened for you, but that's because you're a manifestation expert. Like, how do I know that's going to happen for me? Right.
Right.
I think when someone comes with all of the right ingredients, and that's really important, right? By the time because I had dated many, many men before I met my husband, and I was in long-term relationships, and I called off an engagement right before I met my husband, right? So I just want to share that so that people can really find a place in themselves where they can relate to my story.
Yeah.
And I think that when all of the ingredients are in the right place, then manifesting your soulmate relatively quickly becomes a non-negotiable, right? It is easy and it's not impossible. And I think all of us have the ability, the capacity to manifest our soulmate in a relatively quick amount of time, because that's what we all want. That being said, how much inner work are we doing? Right? How are we showing up to the plate? Right? It's like I did so much inner excavation work to understand what are my blind spots, what are my core values, right? Why was I spending years manifesting narcissists and just again and again and again manifesting the same archetype but different man?
Yeah,
right.
I love how you're bringing this up, because I think it's so important. Like you're saying, the beautiful story of like I manifested my husband, but all of the years of the pain and the getting it wrong, so to speak, right? Where it's like you were manifesting other things essentially. And I very, very much relate to this. When I was dating, I definitely have manifested quite a lot of toxic, not great relationships. And I do remember, I don't label it in that way, but like I do believe, like I said, becoming and attracting the love I deserve. There was those moments that I realized I was shifting out of attracting what I used to attract and started to like be open to receive something different, and it came within a couple of months. Like it was a very, like I definitely feel there was that shift, and then there he was a couple months later. So I very much relate to that. Like this is not a shaming anyone. Like if you're still single, that means you just can't manifest your husband, but I can. Like it's not that. It's about like the years of cultivating. It's the inner work alongside with getting yourself into the right place to attract what you really truly want, ultimately want, and not what you maybe subconsciously thought you wanted along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so, I've created what I call the manifestation method to help people manifest their soulmates, to manifest whatever it is their heart longs for, which the number one thing people want to manifest are the people who come to me. It's their soulmate, right?
Yeah.
Because we all want love and we all deserve love and we want partnership and we want to feel like we belong to someone and with someone and they to us. And I believe that we do. And that being said, when it came time for me to manifest Beryl, my husband, I had already understood the mechanism of manifestation. And so when I was sitting there at lunch with 5 of my girlfriends, I made the declaration out loud. I said, "Dear God, if you're listening, my intention is to manifest my soulmate and be married by May of this year or something better."
Wow, so
dear
specific.
God, so specific. By May of this year, something better. And then I set to work. I did 21 days of my inner excavation. I did visualization, which is like the meat and potatoes of what I teach, right? I understood at that point what are living in my blind spots. What are the sabotaging beliefs? What was it in me that had this like imago, like this attachment to narcissists? Like what was the kinky pleasure I was getting out of dating narcissists, right? And so once I was able to pull all of that out of my blind spot and into the realm of awareness, now I have something to alchemize because I'm aware of what's there. The problem is so many of us, we're so scared to like pick up the carpet and see what's been accumulating underneath.
Yeah.
But the only way to advance and elevate and up level in our lives is to be willing to do the dirty work and go in. And what we find is like once we are actually willing to go in and see those pieces are not so scary. They're actually not so scary. They're all just like divine teachings, divine lessons here to show us how to just strip away of the klipot, of the layers of trauma and beliefs and narratives and stories that I've accumulated along the way. And then the real magic is in being able to not just have awareness, because that's one level, that's one level, but then to use that awareness and transmute that information into something more aligned with your soul's purpose.
Yeah.
So I spent those 21 days getting into alignment. And my quantum leap, I talk a lot about in my courses, like what it is to take a quantum leap. Right. And so my quantum leap during those 21 days was to suspend all disbelief. Right. So I'm not superhuman. I just have tools and I know how to use them.
Yeah.
Right. So anytime a disbelief or a negative thought would pop into my mind, I would see it like a thought bubble and pop that thought bubble and come back into alignment. And I committed to just 21 days of being so firm that under no circumstance am I going to let the Yetzer Hara, the inner opponent, the self-sabotaging beliefs, take the driver's seat.
Yeah.
Right? It was just me and God for 21 days. And
I love that because it's not saying I can't have those thoughts. It's saying that when a thought like that comes, I'm choosing to not like engage with it and I'm choosing to not make it my reality. So I love that. Like that's giving the space to be human, right? Where you're just like, I can have thoughts, but like I don't have to make them real for myself. I don't have to decide that that's true.
Absolutely. And why that's important is because from a manifestation perspective, thoughts do become things, right? Like machshava, like the realm of thought. Thought carries frequency. Thought is information. And just because we can't see it doesn't mean that on some realm, like in the quantum field, that those thoughts are coding the quantum with everything we're thinking on a daily basis. And the problem is, what people don't realize is we think up to 80,000 thoughts per day, the average person. And for the average person who is not doing the important inner work, 80% of those thoughts tend to be negative. So if thoughts become things and 80% of the average person's thought processes are negative, it's like, how can we possibly expect to manifest?
It's no wonder 80% of our lives are a struggle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so that should be empowering versus like scary.
Versus
right?
defeating.
Because, right. Because it means we do have a responsibility, but responsibility is the ability to respond. So can I, in the moment, have that awareness, bring that awareness to my consciousness and alchemize those thoughts to better feeling thoughts? Because thoughts become words, words carry frequency, that frequency turns into how we feel, which is our emotional state, which is our vibration, and that vibration sends signals to the realm of infinite possibilities. And so we're coding that field 24/7, right? And that for me feels really empowering to know, oh wow, I really do have that much co-creative power. Let me take custody of that power
Yeah.
and hold it with responsibility.
Yeah, it's realizing which part you play in this system and in the reality of that you're experiencing. You're like, oh, this is my part to play. So obviously not everything's in our hands, but our ability to respond, like you're saying, I love that, and take responsibility for the way that we respond to things and for the way that we think about things and then ultimately feel and do is our part to play. And then it becomes not about blame or victimizing. It becomes about like, wow, if this was up to me, then something else could be up to me also.
Totally. I mean, it's all up to, like, our reality is a direct reflection of things that we've either thought in the past, spoken out loud, felt. Like we're like tuning forks, right? And so and we have what's called an electromagnetic field around us, according to quantum physics, right? And so it's this like energetic field. Some people might call it your aura. Right. So it's this like energetic.
Yeah, that's a trendy term.
It's a trendy term, but it's in scientific terms, it's real. And that field, that electromagnetic field, is being programmed in every single moment with our vibration, with how we're feeling, with information. And so we can, and that field is directly connected to an even greater field of information, which is the realm of manifestation. So if we just take responsibility for our immediate thoughts, what are we speaking out loud? So many people say they want to manifest their soulmate, right? But want also implies lack, or they're in a state of like, why don't I have him yet? I really want him. Why don't I have him yet? Where is he? Where is he? Is he ever going to come? Am I too old? Am I too this? Am I too that? Right? It's like, that's not manifestation. That's keeping yourself in a vibration of I don't have, right? Which implies lack. And when we're in a vibration of lack, we manifest more lack. So a lot of this, again, is like fine tuning how we're talking to ourselves, because that'll translate into what manifests.
Yeah, for sure. And just hearing you say all this, I'm just thinking for someone listening who's like, well, I just like to think in terms of like Emunah and Hashem. And it's like, if I'm not married, that means Hashem doesn't want me to be married now, right? And it's like, where do we blend? Or I guess in your work, how do you speak to those aspects of like, obviously it's co-creation, right? But like, which parts are you saying like, this is God and this is me and it's about timing, or is it about me being ready? Like, can you speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, I would say ultimately everything is in God's hands. Everything, right? You know, I would say Torah and Kabbalah, like the Kabbalah is very clear, right? We're not meant to sit passively and wait for life to happen to us, right? We are co-creators with the divine, and God partners with us, but God does not override our free will. Okay, so if a woman is sitting there saying, if God wants me to be married, it'll just happen, right? What she's doing is she's essentially handing away her part of the co-creation, right? So if you like imagine a farmer saying, well, if God wants me to have food, then the crops are just going to grow, right? But if he never plants seeds and doesn't water and doesn't tend to the field, what's going to happen? Right? Yes,
Yeah.
God provides the rain, the sun, and the miracle of growth, but the farmer has to plant, right? And so marriage is the same. You know, yes, God already knows who your soulmate is, and yes, divine timing is a real thing, but we, from a Kabbalistic perspective, are asked and being called to prepare our vessels.
Yeah.
Right? Because Kabbalah is all about light in vessels, light in vessels. Like, is our vessel expanded enough to hold the amount of light that we're hoping to call in a partner? Right? So by to expand one's vessel, it means to open your hearts, heal the blockages, and create the conditions that are necessary in which love can enter and flourish. Right. And so what does that mean essentially? It means doing the inner work, healing attachment wounds, shifting your patterns around self-worth, right? Putting yourselves in situations where you can actually meet someone, right? And also just learning how to give and receive love in a healthy way, and ultimately believing that it's possible for you, right? Like faith, emunah, bitachon, like that is a huge piece, right?
Agreed. Yes.
We can want everything in the world, but if we don't believe that it's possible for us, then, we're literally just creating an unnecessary block.
Yeah.
And the Zohar teaches that, souls are destined in pairs, but they only reunite with one another once each soul has done its tikkun. Tikkun being its soul correction or its preparation, right? So, to answer your question, yes, it is written who and what and when, but it's not automatic, right? Your effort and your growth can activate and accelerate that alignment. So we can literally, shift the stars, shift our horoscope, the more we come into alignment with our soul's divine mission, even in the realm of divine partnership, so,
For sure. Yeah, I think it's like there's infinite possibilities according to our choices. And that's the way that I think about it, that it makes sense to my brain. So it's like if there's infinite possibilities attached to all the different outcomes of what the possible choices are that I can make, then it has to be that the choices I make accelerate or decelerate this thing that I want coming to me, because divine timing is all in like, well, how are you contributing to, are you ready for me to give you this, right? God is like, are you ready? This is the state of readiness you need to be in. Now you have all of these different options of choices and paths that can lead to this readiness. But if you are not ready for me to give you this and for you to be in the position to be able to like recognize it, receive it, to hold it, to take it in, then there is no point. So it's like, I can only bring it to you when you bring yourself to me. And that is through the different actions and the choices that we have. And therefore, it's like when, the becoming and attracting the love you deserve is like becoming the vessel that can hold the love you deserve. Because I love that you said, like, you want that, like, you have to be able to hold that level of light. I'm not sure exactly how you said it, but like your desire to have something doesn't necessarily mean that you can have the thing, that you have the capacity to hold that thing. And so if you focus on becoming the kind of person who can have that capacity to hold it, it naturally starts to just like, well, then there it is. Before that, it just couldn't be there.
Absolutely. And we see this where, people spend years, decades trying to manifest a specific person, a job, a situation, right? But they're kind of like putting the horse before the carriage. Or sorry, the carriage before the horse.
Yeah.
Right?
I get the phrase. I don't even know what it means, but yes.
Right? It's like creating a stumbling block for yourself. If
Right.
you're just focused on like, give me. I want. Right? It's like I see it with my toddlers, right? It's like, Ima, give me hot cocoa. I am needing hot cocoa and you owe me hot cocoa, right? I'm just going to be like, okay, so here's the cacao, go make it yourself. Right? But when my child is aligned with the frequency of like gratitude, right? And I mean, it's a mashal, it's a metaphor, but ultimately what I'm trying to say is to try to manifest a particular thing without first aligning with the version of yourself that can hold that reality.
That was good.
Right?
Yeah.
Then you're setting yourself up for failure. And it doesn't mean you can't attract a person without doing the work, but God knows you're going to be doing a heck of a lot of that work within
Right.
the container of marriage.
Yeah.
And Kabbalistically, this is like trying to pour light into a vessel that hasn't been prepared. Like the vessel has cracks, right? The light's going to seep out and you're not going to be able to hold that light. The energy can't flow. Like manifestation is energy work. It's becoming like a wizard of energy and knowing how to like really become like an alchemist, like the Zohar teaches that the vessels have to actually match the light. And so in manifestation terms, you don't manifest what you want, you manifest what you're a vibrational match for. So when you really start to believe, I am the daughter of the ultimate king, I am worthy, I am unique, I am deserving, which so many women do not inherently feel that.
Yeah. We've been programmed out of it in so many ways for so long. And that's actually, I always say it's the unappealing part of my program, where it's like not the part you market, but it's the part that's the truth of inside, right? Where it's like, we need to shift your beliefs about what's possible for you and your deservingness and your worthiness, when initially you're like, no, of course I want it. So I think I deserve it. Like, of course I want a great guy. Of course I want, but it's like, let's actually take a look at what you truly, how are you speaking to yourself? How are you truly feeling inside? And get that reprogrammed so that your external reality starts to shift naturally because of that internal shift.
100%. How many people deeply desire a loving partner, but if your self-worth or your boundaries aren't healed, or if you're still living from a place of people-pleasing, then energetically you're unconsciously actually repelling that very thing you want.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're constantly contorting yourself and putting yourself in these situations where it's almost like the other person is interviewing you. Right? And now you're trying to put on your best face, the right mask.
So that you can be accepted. You can be enough. You can be...
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's not authentic alignment. That's not, I remember when I was going on dates, I would go into these dates thinking to myself, okay, Ayelet, ready? You're interviewing them. Right? Are they qualified? And not from a place of ego, but it was just a beautiful reminder for me to remember like my inherent worthiness, and from that place we can meet eye to eye, heart to heart, soul to soul, because I get to show up just being myself.
For sure. It's like it's a quote of like, you walk into a room and you think, do I like them? Not do they like me? Right? Something like that. And I think that that's like, ultimately, I believe it should be like you're saying, like you want to put yourself in the energy of interviewing them because it's a practice for you, right? But ultimately, both people are interviewing each other. Both people are coming with in their full power, in their full worth and deservingness and worthiness and all of that. And then they're just like, well, do we align? Like, do we fit? Does this make sense? Are we the right one for each other? Or I can send you on your way with love because this is just not meant for me. So it just, everything becomes like less pressured. And I think that's like going back to my breakup where I remember having this moment. I think it was just like, well, if he decided that I'm not for him, then he's not for me. Like, I'm not trying to change anyone's mind. I'm not trying to there was just a power in like, well, I am going to be right for the right person. And so thank God if he's, if he didn't feel I was right for him, then that means we're in the perfect place that we need to be.
100%. I always say rejection is protection, right? It's like if someone is a no, okay, that means that there's someone else out there who is in even deeper alignment with what I'm meant to be with.
Yeah.
Right. And I think you mentioned something just about like attachment to an outcome, right? When we're hanging on to someone who's a no to us, right? That's like that type of clingy energy, right, is the antithesis to manifestation, right? Real manifestation is...
And love.
And love.
Yeah, because that's not what love, that's the opposite of what love is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, can I be me, and can this person truly appreciate and value and desire me for me? Otherwise, if I'm putting on an act, then they're falling in love with a version of me that's not me. And that's a show that can't withstand itself for very long.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. It's like it doesn't work for manifestation because then it's not giving the freedom for it to come based on who you are. And it's also not actually love because you're not loving each other for who you truly are. If you are putting on a show or if you are trying to gain approval in some way or trying to meet certain needs. That's why I love how you talk about like addressing those blockages, because there's so much of the work that I do that when speaking with clients, especially behind the scenes and like our private work, there's so much like realizations of protection. Like these are the ways I've been protecting myself. Trauma, childhood, attachment, right? All of these things that I'm like, if I'm noticing and realizing that I've been protecting myself, I'm protecting myself from the possibility of hurt or from perceived risk. But ultimately, that is the exact pathway to get to what I want. So no wonder I haven't been getting what I want. Like it's almost like just a relief to realize, like we said before, the part that you play in the path in the reality of your life right now. And so if that was, it's almost like that was a blockage on the path of like your own self-protection. And once you remove it, now that same exact path that you used to be afraid to go down because you were too busy protecting yourself is the actual path you go down to receive what you really, really want. And then it's free and available to come to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm looking here at the questions. I'll cut this part out, but I'm like, we already discussed so many of them. Okay, so yeah, 2 more things. Okay. What if someone is saying, I've been manifesting for years and nothing is working? What do you think could potentially, like what might actually be going wrong? If they truly believe they're doing work, they're, like I'm a worked on person, I'm a self-aware person, I've been doing this stuff, I've been to a program, I've been to therapy, I've been, and I've been in this work, I've been studying manifestation. Let's say I feel like I'm doing all the things. What might actually be going wrong?
So I would say in a lot of cases, I'm not here to like play God, right? But what I see come to me once I actually do like the inner excavation work with clients is that a lot of people are carrying unresolved stories or klipot, right? And so these stories are what we internalize about ourselves. And I always say the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves become our reality. Okay. And so it's like, how honest are you actually being with the stories you're telling yourself about yourself? Right. When I was 8 years old, I had a crush on a boy named Tommy, and Tommy came up to me in recess one day, looked me in the eyes and said, Ayelet, I don't like you, not even a little bit. Get that through your thick head.
Oh, gosh.
And the 8-year-old version of me, I was so innocent, right? It's like I didn't know what heartbreak felt like.
That's very painful.
That was so painful. And I ran to the bathroom and I cried and I cried and I cried. And what were the stories I told myself about myself, right? I'm not enough. I'll never find love. I'm not pretty. I'm not deserving.
That if I like someone, they're gonna really not like me.
Right. No one I like is gonna like me back.
Yeah.
And these stories started to form these klipot, these shells around my pure essence. Right. And so these shells really block the light that distorted my reality. And what ended up happening was, for years, I wasn't even conscious of the fact that into my teenage years and then like early 20s even, where I was carrying these stories in the unconscious realm, right? And I had created like these protector parts using like IFS language, internal family systems lingo, where I created these protector parts. And one of my protector parts, I named her Tough Girl. Right? Because Tough Girl never would ever, God forbid, get her heart broken again the way Tommy broke her heart. So what did Tough Girl do? Tough Girl made sure that she would only attract men who were actually afraid of commitment. Right? These men were afraid of commitment. And what I managed to do as a result was secure a place for myself where I never would actually get my heart broken, because we'd never actually be able to go deep enough to get to the next level in relationship.
Yeah.
Right?
You would never actually have to care as much in order to risk getting your heart broken.
Exactly. And so that protector part kept me safe. So she played a good role, but while she was keeping me safe, she was also keeping me from real love.
Yeah.
Right. And so I had to then understand, what were the stories I was telling myself about myself? What were the stories I was telling myself about men in general, right? Was I able to trust men after Tommy broke my heart? And so manifestation is not just about thinking positively. That's like a very superficial tip of the iceberg level of manifestation. It's about clearing these stories so that the essence of your soul can radiate freely, and then you attract from that vibration of inherent worthiness, deservingness, self-love. And until that light can shine, the universe just reflects back to us the patterns of limitation versus the patterns of expansion. So that, I would say, is one thing I see present itself in clients. And I think another thing is just having this like really high expectation of quick results without doing the deep, deep, deep inner work. Manifestation is a co-creative process. You can't just simply wish someone or something into your life without doing the inner alignment work. So women come to me, they're like, I've been manifesting for decades. I'm like, okay, but have you actually gone to that place of like tshuva style self-reflection? And what I mean by tshuva style self-reflection is I don't translate tshuva as repentance.
Right.
I translate tshuva as a returning to self,
Return. Yeah.
or a remembering who you truly are.
And it's a perfect time of year. So I'm just soaking this up. Keep going.
Exactly. Yeah. This is the time. If we actually hone in on doing the real tshuva work this month of Elul going into Tishrei, I mean, my husband and I, we do this every single year. Even we're married, and we'll still have what we want to manifest.
Yeah.
So we sit down and we do an internal accounting of coming back to who we truly are. We write it down, we journal on it. I have a whole like template that we fill out. And then the next Elul, we'll look back at the previous list we wrote previously in the last Elul, and we see how things just, it's
Wow.
miraculous. So yeah, I think, I'd say doing really important boundary work is another like prerequisite. Some people think that boundaries are inherent, that we just know what our boundaries are. No, it took me well into like my 30s to really put a mirror in front of my face and say, oh, wait a minute, Ayelet, whoa. You thought you had a strong no your whole life, but you really don't have a strong no.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
you're
100%. We trick ourselves into thinking like, oh, I don't have an issue with people pleasing. I don't have, and it's like when it comes down to it, in the reality of the moment where you're agreeing to something you don't want to agree with or whatever it is, you're like, oh, like if you're willing to look at it, you'll see those places. And I love how you brought up that like everyone is going to have to do the work. So this is a common thing that people say to me is like, oh, so you're saying that if you got married really young, right, you get married at 19, then either you're just a super quick manifester, you have no issues, everything's perfect, right? Or if you want to demonize it on the other end, you're saying, oh, you must be shallow, you must not be that deep because it was just so surface level for you to just be like, sure, I'll just, so I love how you're speaking to like every person, and everyone's different, of course, but everyone's doing their work. It's just a matter of in which stage of life and in which, like who's around them when they're doing that work, right? Because everyone is thrust into it on some level. We're going to have to face ourselves in some way. And so if you were able to meet your soulmate in a quick and easy way and super young, so then it's like you said, during the marriage and maybe during raising children or just who knows, 40s, 50s, 60s, like in life, there are certain things that you'll confront and face and deal with that maybe someone who has had those, extra 10 years to do that self-work, maybe is just in a different place by the time they get to that age, which, again, accounting for all the variations of the way people are and their personalities. But I love how you said it's like no one's exempt from the work, basically.
Yeah. And I find that when we get to the root of what our like soul contract is in this lifetime, or what like the root tikkun is, like the root soul correction, I find that when we're willing to confront it head on and take full ownership and responsibility for that internal correction that needs to take place, that's when the manifestation can take 21 days, right? It's like I worked with a woman who came to me recently. She was 45, beautiful inside and out, successful, overqualified to be in partnership, right?
Yeah.
And she's been dating for over 20 years. 20 years of just like longing and like crying, like just like endless amount of tears spent.
Sounds like torture to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And she thought she was doing all the right things. But then as soon as we really were able to kind of like fine tune and put under a microscope that specific thing that was her soul's tikkun in this lifetime, we came to unravel or reveal that she actually was on some deep unconscious level terrified of commitment. And what that meant in terms of giving over her freedom, giving over her agency, giving over her sovereignty, right? She's a strong, powerful woman. What would it mean to be in partnership, and what do I need to give up? And so sometimes, like, when we've been dating for a long time and something's not manifesting, it's because we have what I call opposing desires. On the one hand, I want the partner. On the other hand, I'm actually terrified of the partner and what
Yeah.
that comes with. And so once we got to the root of that, she manifested her husband a year and a half later. Now they're married. And yeah.
Yay. Yeah, for sure. And it's like everyone has, like you're saying, that root, there's everyone has their own path. And so some might encounter it on the way towards, finding their soulmate. And some might find their soulmate and then encounter a different, root issue or root thing to fix that is like just in a different realm, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wrapping up when you say, because this is where we'll come full circle here, when you said your story, and you said that there was a specific time and date that you're like, this is when it has to happen by. Is that something you generally recommend? If yes, why? If no, why? And why did you do it for yourself? And just give us a little bit more of insight into your story.
Yeah, it's a really good question and a really important one. I would say I don't always recommend that people give themselves a timeline. I would ask you to give yourself a timeline if you have a very strong inner space that's surrendered. Right? Because what ends up happening is if you give yourself a specific date and then it doesn't happen by that date for whatever reason,
Yeah.
the disappointment and the new beliefs and the new stories and the new narratives will be manifestation doesn't work.
Yeah,
Right?
it'll be
When
too
it
strong to
actually-
overcome at that point. Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying, right? So it's like I know that for me, manifestation work is about, again, I was able to do this because I can surrender to an outcome, right? And so I was able to have a date that acts as motivation for me and inspiration. And I know for me that choosing a date, what it does, it just takes all of that information that my desire is holding and it places that information at the epicenter of a bullseye, right? And so now I have a lot of focused energy and intention on this bullseye. Now, if I didn't manifest my partner, if we weren't married by the end of May, which we ended up getting married on May 29th of that same year, but let's say that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Right? I know because I understand the spiritual science of manifestation. I know that what I did do by putting in all that inner work for those 21 days was I took all that manifestation energy and brought it closer to the bullseye. So maybe it's meeting me now at the outer ring, right? Maybe not at the bullseye after 21 days, but right, somewhere in that timeline.
Yeah.
And so I say to people, like, if surrendering is challenging, then give yourself, say like, this year, I would love to manifest my soulmate by this year, for example, but it doesn't have to be so specific.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking, because I'm like, I feel like for you there must have been, and it's also a personality thing, I believe. It's like where it helps you not dilute your focus and just put all of your energy towards something when you know that there's a date attached. And I would venture to say probably majority of people would fall in the category, I know I would, of like it being too hard to have a certain date and then be disappointed and then decide that your work didn't mean anything, and right, all of the stories that we create around that are just then another thing to overcome. And so it's better, at least in my manifestation and what worked for me, is to just be like, I don't know when, and even if I say right in the general year or in the next few years or in the coming future, just like I am heading towards this. I'm ready for this. I'm wanting this to happen. Like I can see this happening. I can actually, like you said, with visualization, I can visualize it coming true and it being a natural part of my life, like really integrating it without that like timeline so that we don't feel that pressure. I think it's actually really cool that you were able to do it a date, because I remember trying to do manifestation for other things in my life with dates, and I would get so annoyed whenever the date came. I'm like, forget it. There's no point.
Because I know it's pulling it closer. It's like we are human magnets, right? I said we have a
Yes.
magnetic field. We are human magnets. And when kavana, when our intentions are clear, then we're walking that manifestation tightrope, seeing our desired outcome at the end of that tightrope as though it's already mine, like it's in the bank. So I know that, like, by setting a date for myself, I'm just pulling that end result closer. Okay. And if it doesn't meet me by the end of May, okay, maybe it'll meet me a couple months later or 6 months later or whatever it is. Like, I have, like, when I work with people one-on-one, or if they're in my like membership, right, they understand the mechanisms, the spiritual science of manifestation. So for them, it might be easier to set a specific date because they understand what it is they're drawing in by setting a specific date. But again,
Yeah,
that's
the
not,
more
that's not
detail,
for
I
everyone.
understand that. It's like the more detail oriented you are in your process, the more detail oriented you can be in expecting the outcome, maybe, right? But it's like not.
I'd say the more surrendered you are, and the more trust you have, right? And what do I mean by trust, right? There's faith and then there's trust. There's amuna and there's bitachon.
Right.
Right? And I think some people get the two confused, right? So amuna is this conceptual understanding that there is a higher power that runs the show, right? Like
Yeah.
I can say, I trust that God exists. Like I know that God exists. Bitachon, real trust, and this is what's required in manifestation, right? Bitachon is when you take that intellectual knowing and you bring it down to the level of embodied emuna, right? Where it's like, I am now taking actions, like surrender.
Makes it real.
I'm taking action in the direction of that knowing, right? I'm walking through life knowing and feeling and behaving in a way that I know that I know that I know my manifestation is around the corner, right? And that's embodied faith. And that's
Yeah.
that's where you start to vibrate at a frequency of trust that has a ripple effect. Because when God sees that we're here and we trust God's plan and God's guidance, then things accelerate more quickly.
Speaking of magnets, my marriage magnet method program for single women is now open for enrollment. And that's like we're talking about here. That's literally what we do, becoming and attracting the love that we deserve and the love that we desire. And thank you so much, Ayelet, for coming on here and sharing your wisdom. I loved every single minute of it. And I know that this is just going to be so valuable for our listeners. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me on.